Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Ask Sharifah Videocast. I am your host, Sharifah Hardie, and I have an amazing show for you today. It's so amazing because I have the honor of interviewing and sitting down and just having a little chat with one of my friends who I just love immensely. She's so wonderful. She's always giving, has the best hugs in the world, and she's also always willing to help other people. And I believe that's the most important thing. So before I go ahead and introduce our guest for today, I'm going to ask you to do what I always ask you to do, and that is to go ahead and share this show because friends don't let friends miss out on Ask Sharifah Videocast. I would love to introduce my friend Jade Elizabeth, and we're going to discuss her book, the Itsy Bitsy Self-Esteem book, as well as some of the other things that she has going on. You've seen her on the Roundtable Talk Show. You've seen her on Face to Face Talk Show, and we have her here today at Ask Sharifah Videocast. Good afternoon, Jade. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you for having me, Sharifah. So, the book is actually called Your Amazing
You're
Itty Bitty,
amazing.
Itty Bitty Self-Esteem Book 15 Steps to Gain and Keep High Self Worth. The reason I wrote the book is it was what I did, how I went from not feeling worthy to even speak to people to being the person that I am today, and even being a public speaker, which is a huge difference from what I was before.
What were you
So,
before?
pardon?
What were you before?
It was interesting. If you went back probably 30 years ago, I probably would not have even been able to speak to you because of your success. That's how little self-esteem that I had. Um, it's interesting how the story started. I was adopted at 2.5, and I was a very, very, extremely, very active child. And because of it, I always got into trouble because I was always trying to keep myself entertained because I could get bored extremely easy. And because of it, I was always being punished. Well, when I found out that I was adopted, I thought, well, that must be the reason that my mom threw me away, because she couldn't handle how bad I was. And I labeled myself a bad seed. And for the longest time, I walked around and I felt less than anybody else in the whole wide world. And one day I picked up a book, and it was called Psycho-Cybernetics. I think I was in my teens at the time. And, most teenagers always think they're the only ones that think and feel the way they do. Don't you agree?
I agree.
So all of a sudden, this book is saying things that I was saying to myself in my head. And it's like, well, then you know what? If it's in this book, then other people must feel the same way. And it actually started me on a journey of learning how to heal and shift who I was and become the person I came here to become. It's one of the reasons that I do the work that I do. I'm a teacher, I'm a healer, I do coaching, but my coaching is more on emotional health rather than on business or everyday life. It's more of learning and teaching people how to shift their thoughts and their emotions, because every thought creates an emotion, and every emotion that you have determines what you see from that point forward.
Wow, Jay, you shared a little bit about this on Face to Face Talk Show. So I
Mhm.
did learn a little bit, but I wasn't able to go in depth into it. So I know you said that you read a book. Sometimes we read books, we get the information, we get the knowledge. Like for example, I had a guest on my show whose father wrote a book. He wrote the book years ago. She paid it no attention, paid it no mind. She was going through a divorce and really needed words from a parent or a father. And she went, picked up his book that she'd had for like over 20 years and began to read the book. So my comment this morning was, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So you may have read the book, but so often we don't make the changes in our life that we need to. So what was it about this book or where you were in your life that made you decide it's time for me to change?
Well, part of my belief is that every single one of us have messages to give to the world. And the people that need to hear the message from us can only hear it from us. So if someone else had given me that same thing, I probably wouldn't have heard it because I needed to hear it from that author.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to hear certain things. It's like I was sitting in, I was, because of all my other issues, I was a perfectionist, really super perfectionist. And most of the time I would keep myself from doing things because of it. And here I was sitting in a mastermind class, and the host that was giving it made a statement and said, you know, every time you do something, the next time you can do it better. Now, I'm sure I heard that a million times, but for the first time, I actually heard it because I believe he was the one that was supposed to deliver that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's all about finding the people that you resonate with, that their words can encourage and help you along, because not everyone resonates with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so many people, and I find this interesting, so many people in the world compete.
Mm-hmm.
How many coaches are out there? It's like thousands and thousands of coaches. My old business partner, her name was Catherine Morris, and her and I had a holistic center in Tustin
Mm-hmm.
years back. It was before just right about the stock market crash. We had the place for about 5 years. And what I found most interesting, which taught me a good lesson, was that her and I taught exactly the same classes, except she taught intuitive art
Mm-hmm.
and I taught people all about crystals.
Mm-hmm.
So our students would only cross pollinate for those two classes, but we both taught Reiki. We wrote together a class that is a personal development program that lasts about 9 months. There's
Mm-hmm.
one class a month because during that month from class to class, you actually do the work so that you can improve and become the person you're here to become. And watching her students and mine was interesting because my students would come back and say, I just love her to death, but she puts me to sleep. Now, you know me, I'm just the opposite. I'm full of energy. And when her students would come into my class, they
Mm-hmm.
would sit as far down the table as they possibly could away from my energy because it made them nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And Catherine and I said to ourselves, you know, there really is no competition because the people that resonate with you are the ones that are going to come to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I like going out and speaking,
Mm-hmm.
because when people hear you speak, when they get an idea of your energy and who you are, that's how you attract people that you can help or learn or teach or even mentor.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of information that you touched on, Jade, very interesting, and I'm going to go forward with that. But I want to go back. You mentioned Reiki. For those in our audience who are unfamiliar with Reiki, would you explain that to us, please?
Well, the easiest way to explain it, especially to a non-person, is Reiki is a Japanese technique for
Mhm.
stress reduction and relaxation that promotes healing.
Okay.
So it includes classes. There's 3 levels, and it includes classes that people can come to. They get what we call attuned. In other words, they get connected to the source of where Reiki comes from,
Hmm.
and then they can put their hands on someone, or they can even do it remotely, because I do a lot of remote distant healing on people, because right now with the pandemic, it's we're not doing a lot of hands-on things.
Right.
But what it does is it speeds up the healing process in the body, because it allows the body to fully relax, so that your own healing abilities can take over, but it also enhances it.
It sounds interesting for someone who was very shy, had low self-esteem, wouldn't speak to somebody, now helping others to heal themselves. To me, that takes a lot of confidence, especially when you're dealing with something like Reiki, which is sending someone energy remotely. How do you have the confidence to know that this is going to help someone?
Well, I guess the best way to describe it is in the class of level 2, when you're taught how to do a remote,
Hmm.
you have to get your own ego and your own thoughts out of the way. And the only thing that you connect with is the person that you're doing the session on and
Hmm.
their greatest good. And when you do that, that's when the magic happens. But you have to get out of this mind.
Hmm. Right. Well, that's interesting. So, what are some of the aspects of the human body that Reiki is good for?
Everything.
Hmm.
I don't know of anything that Reiki isn't good for.
Hmm.
It's good for emotion. It's good for your mental outlook. It's good for physical.
Hmm.
But I also do other modalities, because one of the things that I find is that no one thing works for everybody.
Okay.
So when I first started doing Reiki, it was interesting. I would have people come and I would do a good session on them. They would leave feeling wonderful.
Okay.
And then about a month later, they'd call me up for the same thing. And I
Okay.
started thinking about that. And it's like, okay, so if Reiki's healing them, why is it they're coming back?
Okay.
Which then led me to the mind.
Mind. Yes. When you
Okay.
said that, I thought of the same thing because I believe, like scripture says, it is done unto you as you believe. And I
Correct.
had this conversation with someone as well who she was doing healing work with. I know you're familiar with Dawn Lane, and she was
Yes.
telling me about a person she was working with, and she made the same comment. She said to me, she said, she won't accept the healing. And I was like, what does that even mean? She won't accept the healing. But whatever she was doing with this treatment, the woman didn't believe it was going to work, and it didn't work. So it's just interesting to watch people who are in this industry and some of the aspects of it. I find it very enlightening.
Well, one of the questions that I always ask someone before I ever start is, are you willing to let go? And do you
Hmm.
believe that I can help you?
Hmm.
Because if I start with that and they give their consent, guess what happens?
They
The
heal.
people that I did the Reiki on, they were healed, they were shifted. But because their old mindset didn't let go of the old programming, that's
Hmm.
what called it back. So that got me into hypnotherapy.
Okay.
So from hypnotherapy, um and I wasn't one of these weekend hypno students that, oh good, I Friday, Saturday, Sunday, now I'm a hypnotherapist. No, mine was about 3.5, 4 weeks long. And in between, we had a break halfway through where we had to do 10 sessions write up all of the information and bring it back to the teacher and turn it in. It was part of our homework and what we learned through each
Okay.
one. I also took extra classes on past life regression, and in the process, it was interesting how if you really listen to your guidance, you're guided from one thing to another to another. That was how I got into Reiki. I was in a class for personal development,
Okay.
and the teacher said, if everybody's interested, we'll learn Reiki tomorrow. It's like, I didn't even know what it was, but I trusted the teacher, so here we go. So from there, it was the hypnosis. Well, she talked about anchoring, and it was like the way she described it and the way I tried it, it never seemed to work. But I belonged to a meetup group, and one night, my meetup group was having a speaker come in and talk only on anchoring. It's like, oh, I've got to go because this is something that I'm not really very good at. Well, it's not a hypnosis term. It's an NLP, which stands for neuro linguistic programming.
Okay.
And that's what got me into that. My hypnosis teacher also taught EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. So I got into that. So now I kind of look at myself as a handyman, to where when a person comes, it doesn't matter what their problem is. I have a tool that can help them to shift where they're at and become who they want to become if they're willing to step there.
Jay, you're so interesting. I know we were going to focus on the book, but now we're discussing Reiki, NLP, EFT, so much more than that. But I think humans are complex, right? There's so much going on. We can't just have one cookie cutter fix for everyone. But I love the fact that your book is about self-esteem, because all of these things have to do with how we feel about ourselves, who we are, who we believe ourselves to be. Some of the recordings we have in our mind that our parents or our grandparents or our coworkers or our teachers have put in our mind. And sometimes we get to a point where we have to stop all those recordings and look around and figure out how to make our lives better. So how do you determine which modalities to use?
Well, it would depend on the person. Not everyone is comfortable with hypnosis because there are so many myths about hypnosis. People have seen people on stage shows where they get up there and they act silly and stupid. Believe it or not, I've done a stage show. It was really, really fun, but the people that you see in a stage show want to do what they're doing.
Okay, wait. So were you the hypnotherapist?
I was.
Okay.
I was, and actually did a stage show. It was a class that I took on stage hypnosis. And at the end of the class, we actually did a stage show. And what I find interesting is that when the people act silly, their excuse is, well, that wasn't me. They made me do it. Even though this was the hypnotist. Even though they really, the person truly wanted to get up there and be the center of attention and act silly, which to me there's nothing wrong with, but sometimes people need an excuse to be able to do that so that they can blame someone else. So hypnosis is nothing more than a super deep meditation where you really go in and you get super deep, where you're out of this mind and you do exactly what the hypnotist is having you do, what you see, what you experience. But most people second guess themselves. That's part of the problem that most people have. If people actually listen to their very first thought and that's how they reacted, they would be in so much better shape, because the first thought that a person gets, that's their soul speaking to them when they ask a question. Second one, now you're in the ego mind.
Mm. Okay, so let's talk about past life regression. Some people will explain that as a memory. Some people will explain it as a vision, a dream. Some people will say it's real. Some people will say it's a story that your soul needed to give you in order for you to understand some of the things that you're experiencing in this life. What has been your experience, Jade?
Pretty much what you just said.
Mhm.
You know, our souls give us ways of that is comfortable for us to be able to step into and heal.
Okay.
So the people that we see, the pictures that come to us, especially in past life regression, is something that's comfortable for the person so that they don't go in there and just go ballistic because they get scared.
Okay. Okay. So, but where does the story come from?
Your soul.
Okay.
You
So
know,
is it a memory or is it a
well,
story,
okay,
I guess?
so here's my belief. So when we die,
Hmm.
or when we move on in each lifetime, your soul has every single one of the memories from that. They are in your chakra system.
Hmm.
So when you incarnate into a new physical body, then all of those memories are there. And when
Okay.
they are there, you react accordingly. Sometimes people have issues that don't come up until they were the same age that they were in the lifetime that it was created.
Okay.
Like, for an example, a person maybe drowned,
Hmm.
and it wasn't until maybe they drowned or they almost drowned, and it was a very serious emotional issue for them, and it made them afraid of water. And maybe this happened when they were 15, let's say,
Hmm.
hypothetically. When they're born, maybe they're not afraid of water, but then right around that age, all of a sudden, the memory of that starts to surface, and they find themselves back where they were in that lifetime.
Hmm. Have you ever had a past life regression?
Oh, yeah, because in my class, we had to work on each other. That's one of the things, too, that also helped me to heal a lot, because
Hmm.
in the NLP classes, in the hypnosis classes, in the EFT classes, we had to work on each other, and really you bring up your own issues, because why not?
Yes. No, I had a session with a lady and she did some kind of numbers or something like that. And she looked at some chart and she said that I was Agatha Christie in another life. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. I don't know how she figured it out. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what she said. In my last life, she said I was Agatha Christie. And it was kind of interesting because there were some commonalities. And also, I've written 2 books and 2 ebooks. Agatha Christie's a writer. And one of the things that I learned was that her very first books were unsuccessful. But then over time and keep continuing to write, her books became almost as successful and popular as the Bible. So I'm like, maybe there's hope for me yet. I need to remember in that past life what she did to be that successful.
But you have so much that you give to the world,
Mm-hmm.
that even if you talked about your memoirs,
Mm-hmm.
if you made notes about the people that you interview and the things that you've learned through the interview, that in itself would be a phenomenal book for
Mm.
someone to learn and heal from.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I like that idea. I think I might start compiling some of the information, little
Good.
tidbits from each of the guests, combine them into a book and share it with the world. I did something like that with my first book, which was Ask Sharifah's um, um, And Here's Your Box, which talked about my 8 layoffs and how each time I was laid off, the last thing they always said was, thank you, and here's your box, because they always give you this box full of your personal items, your photos, your whatever you have on your desk. And that was always the last thing and how you knew it was final. And so I compiled some of the guests and some of the stories that I experienced into this book. Maybe I'll republish that one as well as do some memoirs. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Well, to me, it's more of the things that you learn, put them in your own words and put them in a book,
Mm-hmm.
not my words or
Mm-hmm.
someone else's words, because the people that need to learn from you and your experience in life can only hear it in your words
Mm.
and from you.
I think that's what you were saying about when you initially read that book. Excellent,
Right.
excellent, excellent advice. For me, I think the reason why this is so important is because everybody has a story. And I've proven that time and
Mhm.
time again. I don't care how polished they are, what level they are, whether they're a C-suite executive or whoever, everyone has a story. There isn't anyone who has come through this life without challenges, struggles, obstacles. And so often we look at successful, and I'm going to put that in the air quotes, successful people as problemless people. And that is so far
Oh
away from the
no,
truth.
usually those people have had more of the experiences of pain and suffering than most. You
Yeah,
know, at least that's what I found. Um, but one of the things that I would love to talk about, and one of it that's in my book, you know, the itty bitty book is only, let's see, what does it have? 39 pages, I think. And the reason I made an itty bitty book is because so many people read those big fat books or they start reading them and then they give up.
right.
How many books have you started and never finished?
Well, see, I finished them. You know why? Because I
Why?
kind of look at the beginning and then I skip through, skip through, skip through. Then I go to
Oh,
the end. Like, how does this even end? You know what I mean? Like, I don't have time to read through the whole story. Just how does
ah,
this book end? What happens? That's just me.
okay. And see, my book is not necessarily all new information,
Hmm.
but it's information that I compiled, things that I did in order to heal me
Okay.
and the way I did it. And each one, there's 15 steps, and each step is only 2 pages.
Oh, wow.
So I tell people take the book, especially women, put it in your purse or leave it in your car and or have one in your car, one in your house. I mean, they're only $10 each. So when a situation comes up and you're not quite sure what to do, look through and see which one of those 15 steps fits at the time and then practice it. Like, for an example, aware of your own self talk.
I think that's deep.
Yes, it is. I'm actually thinking of writing a sequel where
Mhm.
I'm going to expand a little bit about each one of them. But, you know, awareness, if people aren't, they can't heal. You
Okay.
have to be aware. To me, awareness of the problem is 50% of the healing.
Hmm. That's
Because once you understand it, then you can do something about it.
right.
If you don't, then shame on you. But, you know, awareness is part of it. So when people notice that their chatter or the things that they're saying to themselves isn't good, or they're berating themselves or saying, well, I can't do that, or I'm not smart enough, or that just has never worked for me, I always tell them, stop yourself for a minute and ask yourself a question. Because questions to me are the most powerful thing that you could ever do. Because when you ask a question, you'll always get an answer.
Amen.
Got to listen to the first answer, not the second or the third, but the first one. And to me, the biggest question is, so if I'm thinking this, what would I rather think?
Hmm.
What would empower me right now? So occasionally, my husband and I have words together, and sometimes feelings get hurt. You know, I mean, it happens in life. And usually I'll sit there for a few minutes and feel sorry for myself. And then I'll stop and say, wait a minute. Do I want to sit here and feel sorry for myself for the whole rest of the day and mess it all up? Or what would I rather feel?
Hmm.
I want to be happy. So then I would get up and just do something that would make me happy. and it
Mhm.
completely shifts everything. Or I'll just sit and think about love,
Mhm.
because there's nothing more powerful than that. So there's always things that you can do. It's
Yes.
like people complaining. That's one of them. Complaining and judging. You
Yes.
know, people complain all the time, especially right now. Complaints are going through the roof because of our pandemic that's going on.
Mhm.
The more we complain, the more we get reasons to complain.
Mm. Yes.
The more we judge, the more things we have to judge, but the more other people will judge us as well.
Mhm.
So these are some of the things that most people should not, I shouldn't say should, because should's not a good word. Um, it's something that we all could learn from.
Mhm.
And for me, my belief is every person in the world does the best they can do at the time with the information that they have.
Mhm.
So if we look at everyone, no matter how bad they're acting or how wonderful they're acting, and know that that's their model of the world and respect it, our whole world would be so much different.
I think that's beautiful. I really think that is so beautiful, especially with the times that we are living in right now. We're living in a time, you mentioned not using the word should, but
Mm,
we are living in a time where I think so many people are embodying and living the word should, and they
mhm.
know what everybody should do and everybody should not do. And you have to do this and you have to do that. I'm one of those people. I love like the good old days where people just could just be. You know what I mean? Just be
Mhm.
whoever they are. Because now I just feel like there's a cancel culture. I believe that so many people are too serious. They need to lighten up, laugh, have a good time, relax. Everything is not life or death. You're watching social media and people are arguing, unfriending people, deleting people. For instance, kindergarten, high school, but now you like Trump and she doesn't like Trump, so we can't be friends anymore. Or, you believe in Black Lives Matter. I don't like Black Lives Matter. So now you're unfriended. I would really love, love, love the opportunity to just be able to have a conversation, to have a discussion. Let's just talk without every talk or every deep conversation turning into something that ends friendships.
Well, to me, it's okay to agree to disagree. I
Yes.
mean, to me, that's what makes life so much better. It's like, my students, I have some of the diverse, I don't think that's a word though, diversest students that
Most
there
diverse.
is. Most diverse. There you go. Students that there is. I mean, from every single walk of life. And I love them all because every one of them is looking to become the best that they can be.
Mhm.
So why do we put people in categories? I mean, I've never done that. And God bless my adopted parents. They never showed any prejudice anywhere for anyone. So I just judge a person by how they treat me and who they are to me,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
who they are in the world. I have people that say, well, you can't like them. I mean, this is what they said to me. They don't treat me that way.
Mhm.
Maybe they treat you that way. Well, I also believe that there's no outside of us.
Mhm.
Everything that we see outside of us actually comes from inside of us. So
Mhm.
when you see things you don't like in people, you need to look inside and see, where is that in you?
Mhm.
If you see things you love in somebody, look inside yourself and praise that, because that's inside you as well. Because I know I always praise you for the way you talk with people and bring the best out in them in your talk shows. And I know that somewhere that's in me when I work with my clients.
Mhm. I agree, and I appreciate the praise, and I appreciate how authentic you are. because I know you mean it from your heart.
I
But it's
do.
just because we're alike. We care about people. I believe if you care about someone, if you're interested in them, you will find that beauty in them. You'll find that gold in them. You'll look for it and you'll know it's there. That's one of the things that I learned from being a talk show host, is that everyone wants to tell their story. And it's interesting because sometimes I have to convince certain people that they will be able to be on a talk show. They're like, no, I'm so nervous. I'm shy. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know, how to be on camera. I'm just like, oh, just trust me. It'll be like having a conversation. And the same person who's so nervous and so shy, an hour later or 45 minutes later, is like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I can't believe it's longer than 10 minutes because it felt so fast. But we have a life. I mean, look at us. We've been around for years. So much has happened that once you allow a person a platform to open up, it to a certain extent just kind of spills out.
Well, to me, it's what actually gets me up every morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 74. So I don't want people to have to wait
Mm-hmm.
until they get in their 50s, 60s to start to heal.
Mm-hmm.
I love working with teenagers, with 21, 22-year-olds. My favorites, and no offense, men, but my favorites are women. I really enjoy working with women. Um, for me, women are a lot more open and versatile,
Mm-hmm.
where I have quite a few men clients, except I have to work a little harder.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know why though, but that's because we communicate different. I
Yes.
always talk about that on the show. I will have days where there are no men, days back to back where it's just five women guests on the show. So when a man is on the show, or if I have a panel with more than one man, I always talk about it, acknowledge it, and mention it because women want to go on the show. They want to talk about their business. They want to talk about their feelings. They want to talk about what's going on in the world. Whereas a man is more like, no, I don't want to talk about it. What do I need to do? How do I need to fix it? Let's be more problem or solution oriented,
Right.
not just talk about it.
That's true. That's very, very true.
But I think at the end of the day, all of this starts with self esteem. It starts and begins with believing in yourself, believing that you're worthy, believing that you can, believe that you can accomplish all of your dreams, believe that you're unstoppable. Those are the things that give us the confidence to step into the world and to show up as us. Wouldn't you agree, Jake?
Absolutely. The biggest thing though too is to know that you don't have to do it all at one time.
Mm,
Just do it one small step at a time. Sometimes I tell my students that have my book, I'll say, take one 2-page step that's in here
mhm,
and just work on that. Nothing else, just that. And once you get good at that, then go on to another one
mhm.
and work on that. Don't try to do them all at one time, because when people try to heal that way, they get so bombarded, they get so overloaded. It's like, no, I'm going to give up. Nope, can't do this.
Right, right. Or I also believe that people get very overwhelmed when part of their problems are the people that are around them. Sometimes it's not just our issue, but other people's issue. I saw a meme one time that said that some people are basically surviving what other people from the people in their lives that need to be in therapy. You know what I mean? It's like there are so
Hmm.
many people around us, and maybe it's our mom or our dad or cousins or whoever it is, our children, but because those people are around us, sometimes we feel that we can't make the change necessary in our lives. Have you seen that, Jay?
Well, yes and no. Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm in a similar situation. My husband has dementia.
Oh, sorry to
And
hear that.
well, it's only been about the last couple years.
Hmm.
And at first it was difficult, but when I look at him, every time I want to go into that judging or complaining, I think to myself, he's doing the best he can do.
Right.
He's filled with love. He's the person that I fell in love with and married.
Hmm.
We've been married 39 years now.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And to me, that's what I keep telling myself. He is doing the best he can do with the information that he has. And
Mhm,
if more of us really looked at each other in that respect, then we wouldn't be judging or complaining so much.
mhm,
So I just talk to my angels. I talk to the archangels. Me and Archangel Raphael are very, very well known together because he is known for healing.
mhm,
And I ask him to heal and send healing energy, but not just to my husband, but to everyone that
mhm,
might be in need. So,
mhm. But that example, your example of your husband and his dementia, is an example of one of the things I was referring to, right? Because sometimes we feel sad, we feel depressed because of our circumstance
mhm,
that actually has more to do with other people, right? You could be one of those
right.
people, Jay, that look at it and say, you know what? If my husband didn't have dementia, I would be happier because I could do this, or I could go there, or I wouldn't have to do these things for him. So that's why I am not as happy as I
Well,
could be.
in some ways, that's true,
Mhm.
because I can't just get up and go away for a weekend.
Right.
Um, but, um, I don't look at it as a lack.
Okay.
I look at it as it's part of my mission.
Mhm.
To me, I believe that my mission is to help others to heal, and that's part of it.
Mhm.
So, and God bless them, I've had a lot of good years. So
Aw,
it's
that
now
is so beautiful.
time that we take care of each other.
That is so beautiful. And it's a blessing to have each other. I mean, not everyone does. I've been to way too many funerals over the last month or so, so I definitely understand that. Had a
Yeah.
friend of mine who had a heart attack, went into the hospital, flatlined twice, woke up 3 or 4 days later to find out her husband died while she was in the hospital of a
Oh
heart
my
attack,
God.
stressing and worrying over her in her situation. So now she has to live with a ventilator as well as the loss of her husband. So it's just so much that's going on in the world. I mean, not just to mention the global pandemic, but just
Yeah.
life itself. So we just have to love each other, take care of each other, and always be there for each other. And Jay, you have always been there for me. I am so grateful to have you here today. I appreciate you. And I'm sure you know exactly how much I appreciate you, but I just want to say it again.
And I hope you know how much I appreciate you and what you do for the world. The people that you bring on your show to help others to heal. It's not just me or the next gal, it's a whole conglomeration of people from every walk of life that makes it so interesting. And there's always something for someone to hear that, like I said earlier, that can help them take that next step.
Yes, I definitely agree. Now, Jay, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching live, as well as everyone who's watching it in the archives, and simply let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today.
Love yourself. You know,
Mm,
to me, that is the number one thing, is just remember that it's not selfish to love yourself.
mhm,
So many of us have been taught that if you don't give all the time, you're selfish. If
mhm.
you take time and say no to someone, you're selfish because you need to be able to do it. Well, what's the first thing they tell you when you are on an airplane is put your mask on first,
Yes,
because if you don't take care of you, you're not able to take care of anyone else. So one of the things that I like to do is I want people to think of it this way. Imagine yourself as a glass of water, a
mm,
container, not a glass or a glass of water, but a container. And imagine that the love from God is always flowing. To me, that is one thing we can never, ever, ever shut off. It always flows to us.
Mhm.
So imagine that glass, which is us, being completely filled with that water. Once we are full and we take care of us, share the overflow, because it always keeps flowing and flowing and flowing. So when I give, I never get tired. I never get depleted, because I am not giving from an empty cup. I am giving from a full cup that is so much more giving, and it's so much easier to help others because I'm taking care of me.
I think that is beautiful and wonderful words to end this show. I want to thank you for being a guest today on Ask Sharifah Videocast. I also want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch the show live, as well as everyone who is watching it in the archives. I definitely appreciate your support, Jade, for being here with me today, as well as our audience. I appreciate you, but don't just watch the show. We want you to take action. Please share the show. Please visit our guest website. Follow her on social media. jadeelizabeth.com is her website. Go ahead and check it out. Check out her book. Check out her classes. There's so much more information than just what we were able to share here on the show. We couldn't share everything, but we wanted to bring you the best of Jade Elizabeth here today. And if you are interested in being a guest, please visit the website at AskSharifah.com. Until the next time, everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.